Five, four,
Intro first.
3, 2,
Smile.
1.
And this is Talkin Sports. If you listen to us on WNYO, you'll hear us break down games and statistics. But on the TV side, we're talking sports issues. There's a bit of a gray cloud over baseball these days. Steroids are making their way through the league, and some big changes are slated for the 2014 campaign, including more instant replay and home plate collisions. Here to break down this issue further are the hosts of WNYO's Saturday Hangover, Tim Mohopt and Connor Corcoran. Also joining us this evening is Talkin Sports' own Dan Conklin. Welcome, everybody.
How you doing?
Good to be here.
Now, we talk about this bit of a gray cloud over baseball. Steroids have kind of been in the game throughout the past 10, 15 years, it seems like. And just when it seems like the game's starting to clean up, we see more and more guys getting big paychecks. But we'll get to that later on in the show. Let's start off with the issue of instant replay. We actually saw an instance of the instant replay in a Toronto Blue Jays game earlier this spring training in full swing right now. And Connor, I'll start off with you. What are your expectations for instant replay for this campaign?
Well, I think with instant replay, it's growing. 21st century baseball's finally jumping into the real world here of sports. You know, football's got it, hockey's got it, basketball to some degree there. But it's really a nice step for baseball to take. There's going to be some growing pains, obviously. It's a new program with some kinks.
And we'll actually see here on the video how the replay system is going to be enacted. An umpire walking over to the booth, putting on the headset, and making a call here. So Connor, before you continue your point, do you think this will slow down the game?
I do think so to some extent. I know manager Joe Girardi was talking about it on the Yes Network a couple nights ago there in a game against the Baltimore Orioles. Mentioned how he's a little bit concerned that maybe a 5 or 10 minute gap there for pitchers warming up, staying loose. But he also mentioned that there's going to be a lot more guys in New York back in baseball headquarters, baseball crews watching each and every game, keeping an eye on every single play to cut back on the amount of time spent on the actual replay itself, which will help players. I think it will help the managers, and it will help get the call in quicker to move the game along.
Now, we were actually talking about this while we were having lunch earlier today, Connor. It's almost similar to kind of how hockey is. They have Hockey Central over in Toronto there to look at the replay system there. Do you think this is a kind of a borrowed system from the NHL or something they're going to try out this season?
I think so. I'm not sure how many people will be on each call for each game there for MLB. NHL, I know they got a couple of guys on every game. So as soon as that goal crosses the goal line, you have a couple of guys in Toronto and hockey headquarters watching and making sure it's a clean goal, a good goal. Baseball might be, like I said, growing pains will be the key thing here for the baseball umpiring crew. They're going to have some issues. I know communication is going to be a thing. There's a lot of tricky ins and outs of this new replay system. It's got to come down to a certain number of coaches. The umpires need to believe that they need to make the go to the call. Managers get challenges now. So it'll be interesting to see how it all works out in the end, especially knowing that it could really change the gameplay of entire games.
Great. And I want to bring Tim Mohopt into the conversation here. Tim, let's say you're a major league umpire. Are you maybe taking offense to this, saying, hey, this is kind of one of the last sports to start adopting the replay system? I know we've seen it. You can dispute some calls with replay, but now it's a lot more involved. And basically, if you're a major league umpire, how do you feel about this?
Well, I don't know if I'd be offended so much as I would be kind of just weary that it's a bunch of new things that these guys are going to have to worry about. The scrutiny, at least, will be down on all umpires. Really, the fact that now they'll be able to go have a fallback instead of being poor Jim Joyce a couple years ago, and poor Armando Galarraga on top of that. And I think both of these guys could have used this rule a couple years ago. Of course, that being the blown perfect game, I believe is on the final out for poor Armando Galarraga. But I don't know if I'd say offended. I think in some ways they might be relieved. In other ways, Connor mentioned it, the growing pains are certainly something that's going to be interesting to see how long those take to be ironed out. And until they get used to it, I think there will be some of those annoyances. We'll see some slowing down of games. Even maybe some discord even with the managers and umps, even after the fact that we have an instant replay, even though that's technically not allowed anymore. But nonetheless, I think as of right now, it's a plus for Major League Baseball.
Now, Dan, obviously like to get you into this issue as well. You're a big baseball fan here. From the baseball fan standpoint, how do you think this will look for Major League Baseball? Are fans going to love this? Are they going to hate it? Is it going to be kind of a mix in the middle? What do you think?
Well, it depends on the fan, really. I mean, you've got the traditionalists, and then you've just got the guys that like baseball, guys or gals. Well, the traditionalists are obviously going to be really disappointed because it's going to slow down the game. It's definitely going to slow down the game. Obviously it is. So, I mean, every time you're going to have these instant replay instances, you're just going to, it's going to take a while for them to go and make the decision, and then it's going to draw the fans out of the game. They're just going to be sitting around in the stands, or if they're at home, they might switch the channel. They might go and watch something else. But I think it's something that needs to be done because there have been too many missed calls, like you said, the perfect game or the imperfect game, so to speak. And there were quite a few blown calls last season, even.
Now back to Connor on this one. Hindsight is always 20/20, and obviously umpires can't always make the big call, but we see it in all types of sport. I think, kind of the human error element. That's something that makes sports kind of great. I feel like if they take this aspect away, we're not going to see that Lou Piniella running out, taking out second base and throwing it into right field. We're not going to see those big managerial meltdowns like so many fans, like myself, really enjoy watching. That's part of the reason why I watch the game. So I guess in the culture aspect, and I would say I'm more of a traditionalist baseball fan, try to keep it to how the game's played, and just how is this all going to mesh in together for the traditional baseball fans?
It's going to be tough. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the thing with this is, though, for your traditional fans, so to speak, after the 6th inning, you lose the challenge as a manager. You don't have the right to do it. The umpires themselves, the crew of 4 guys get together, and they decide which play can be challenged or not. If they believe a bang-bang play needs to be looked at, a home run call, foul ball down the line, trap ball, and the outfield needs to be double-checked, they have the right to do that. The manager doesn't have the right to do that. They can go up, huddle up, and decide which call gets reviewed. And you can still have the fireworks. You can still have the Lou Piniellas of the world going out and chasing after umpires. And we saw that plenty of times last season. I think you go back to Game 1 of the World Series this past year in 2013 with the Cardinals and the Red Sox. That neighborhood play, which won't be reviewable under the new instant replay rules, was overturned by the umpires just simply getting together. Now, for the traditional fans, me considering myself one to be, I feel like instant replay is great. I'd love to have it, but I feel like the umpires themselves can control a lot of the calls that are upheld. I feel like if you have 4 guys or 6 guys, when it gets to be that in postseason play, if they huddle up, if they say, all right, hey, I may have missed this call, I may have jumped a little bit too early, that bang-bang play at first may need some reviewing that. Guys, help me out. I feel like 10 times out of 10, that umpiring crew is going to get that call right. And they're going to change that call to the right call. And it really set up, and you look back in the Game 1 of the World Series, that set up a huge dividend for the Red Sox going forward.
Well, I think a big part of it is they want to get the calls right, and really sometimes you just can't get it 100% right. So I think it's a step in the right direction if you want no blown calls. But I think as part of sports, I think it's the best part about sports. It's although we have the big supernatural heroes, you're going to have the human error aspect of it as well. But for now, we're going to take a quick break here on Talkin Sports. When we come back, we'll talk about some big guys who have some steroid allegations getting some big paychecks right here on WTOP 10. You're watching Talkin Sports. We'll be right back.
Millions of kids are using their energy wisely. What's your excuse?
Have you seen my dog?
No, I can't say that I have.
Okay, well, if you see him, he responds to the name Dr. Flopsy Tops.
Alrighty then. Hey, were you the girl who was doing that speech about all the evil and stuff?
SAVAC ambulance respond to a 1 Bravo response, basement of Cuba Hall.
Dispatch, SAVAC 1, en route.
Hey, we're with SAVAC. How can we help you today?
Welcome back here on Talkin Sports on WTOP 10. I'm Mike Tanzini alongside Connor Corcoran, Tim Mohopt, and Dan Conklin. Guys, we've been discussing some big, I guess, gray clouds has kind of been the overlying theme of tonight's show, is gray clouds over baseball. Probably the grayest cloud here. We talked about replay in the last segment, and that could potentially be a good thing for the game. You know, whether you like it or not, calls will be made the right way. Yeah, the game might go a little bit slower, but the right calls will be made. With this is much more of a different issue. We'll talk about kind of the steroids moving into the 2014 season. Last season, an absolute mess, if you will, lack for a better, I'm not sure if there's a better word to describe it other than just an absolute mess. And we saw some guys in the offseason actually get some pretty big bucks. So we'll start off with Tim here. You know, these steroid guys, you know, the Nelson Cruzes of the world, what do you think?
I mean, it's a tricky issue because this is something that has nagged baseball for, as you said earlier, a better part of the last 10, 15 years. And it's something that is absolutely still a problem in the league. And more you're hearing players who are allegedly clean who come out and say, you know, we don't do these things. They're moving for, you know, a full lifetime ban, you know, on first offense. You know, that's something that's being tossed around. And I think, you know, until that's adopted, or if it ever is, you're going to get these controversies every time someone who's been caught using steroids before is given a new contract, because you're not going to get him for free. You know, Nelson Cruz is a talented baseball player. You know, he's a guy, yes, he used steroids, but, you know, he's another one of those guys who didn't get there on steroids alone. He has talent. He's proven it in the past. Johnny Peralta, a similar story. So you're not going to get these guys for a minimum salary. You're going to have to pay them some kind of money until, you know, you're banned on a first offense. Someone's going to pick these guys up, someone who's desperate for talent, someone who's looking for that last piece to try to make a championship run. And that's what I think you're seeing here with Nelson Cruz and Johnny Peralta.
Now, Dan Conklin, obviously, again, big baseball fan. I'm going to kind of use you for the more of a fan perspective here tonight. What does it mean for you to see these guys still get big bucks? I know it's hard to make a big statement here because we saw how valuable he was for the Texas Rangers last year. After his absence, it was kind of a pretty much downhill from them. So, you know, obviously he's a guy who's a big part of the lineup, and he's a big part of your team, but does he deserve to get the money? You know, he's got the allegations to go along with it.
Well, it's not whether he does or doesn't deserve the money. It's the fact that he's going to get it. You know what I mean? I mean, you're going to get these teams, like Tim said, you're going to get these teams who really need talent. They really need the talent. They don't really care, you know, what kind of reputation they get for signing these guys that a lot of the players really aren't fond of, as we saw with the whole Ryan Dempster, Alex Rodriguez fiasco going on last season. But, I mean, I don't think they should get the money, but that's why I'm here.
Well, Connor, I guess we'll move you to more of a doctor standpoint here. If you could somehow repair the game, you know, we see the penalties that are involved with steroids. You know, is it enough? You know, if they want to clean up the game, is it enough?
No, it isn't. 25 games for a first-time suspension is not enough. I think for a first offender, you say, all right, you know, I made a mistake, you know, slap on the wrist. That's basically what it is. 25 games. You saw Johnny Peralta get that, and he was eligible to come back, as was Nelson Cruz, for a postseason run.
Now, but at what point does it stop being a mistake?
Add to that, you know, even that first time, I consider that a mistake strictly, because you look at, you know what you're taking. You're going to your doctor, you're going to your physicist, and you're saying, hey, you know what am I taking? What am I doing? What is this going to do? Is this going to help me get better? Is this going to help me cheat? Is this going to help me stay healthier for 162 games compared to 120 or 130 or whatever it is? It's a major issue. I think, you know, Bud Selig is walking out at the end of this year. There's a couple of guys that are in line to be his successor. He's done a nice job of trying to police the steroid use. But I think it really needs to come down to if you get caught for one offense, you're suspended for a season. You get caught a second time, you're done. I think it's the best way to do it. And when you got guys like David Aardsma and Brad Ziegler, two of the more vocal guys in the Players Association, going against what steroid users are doing. Johnny Peralta signs a 4-year, $50+ million contract of getting banned for 25 games. Nelson Cruz sits out for the same amount of games for his biogenesis connection. And he comes back and gets an $8 million contract guaranteed, plus incentives that could make it up, $10 million plus. And Ziegler and Aardsma, for two examples, they're working off non-guaranteed minor league deals. Those guys are making less than $400,000 in base salary. Guys that are working hard for rehab, working hard to get better and get healthier and to make an impact, and they may get cut 2 or 3 weeks in because, hey, they don't have it.
Now, Tim, people are saying now football has become America's sport and America's new pastime, if you will. What does baseball have to do to compete? I mean, everybody says, there's usually the two sides of the issue. Oh, let them all juice, let them all do whatever, and, that'll make baseball great. But you also have the guys that are honest players and genuine people that try to keep the game clean. And I think, this is just my opinion here. I think baseball, I mean, we've seen it over the past few weeks and months, even with allegations with people off the field. Baseball seems to be, although it has a steroid problem, some of the cleaner behavior compared to what some of these other people are doing in sports. You bring up names like Ray Rice, you bring up names like
Raymond Felton.
Darren Sharper.
I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
So for baseball, I mean, is this as big as an issue compared to some other sports?
Well, I think it's magnified by the fact that baseball primarily is a non-contact sport. I mean, not to defend steroid use in other sports, but when you're a football player and you're caught taking HGH because, you're a running back and you take 30 hits, 40 hits a game, you're going to get, even if it's subconsciously, a little more understanding from even the cynical fan who's, calling for your head. I think there's at least more of a rationale there. Again, not defending it, but, some of these guys are just beat up at 25, 26 years old and they're trying to stick around. Baseball is a non-contact sport where, yes, they play 162 games, but, unless you're a starting pitcher and they pitch once every 5 games, the wear and tear is not quite as significant as other sports. And I think that plays a little bit of a role into, I think, seeing guys like Andy Pettit, of all people, getting caught. And, I'm a Yankees fan saying that. Mike Piazza has never been caught, but there's a lot of speculation about him. Some of these guys that you would never really expect or, these guys that a lot of people looked up to, I think that's really gone a long way to tarnish the league. I think there's other elements that contribute to football, maybe rising past baseball, but steroids definitely is I think, the leader in that category in terms of diminishing this sport's overall popularity.
Now, Tim mentioned that baseball not a contact sport. We'll talk about that after this next break. Home plate collisions are going out the window this season. That's coming up next right here on Talkin Sports on WTOP 10.
April,
yeah?
Your charger's still using energy.
That's not my charger. I don't even have a cell phone.
Millions of kids are using their energy wisely. What's your excuse?
I got no pulse for losing. Shocking. Drives it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. Just can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear. We're just buzzed. Just buzzed? You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right. This isn't happening. You'll be fine.
I feel good.
Really? No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shocking.
Energy savers last 6 times longer than regular bulbs.
This isn't my room. It's Baron Davis's.
The basketball player? This is his room?
I don't live here.
Millions of kids are using their energy wisely. What's your excuse?
Well, welcome back here on Talkin Sports on WTOP 10. We're talking about baseball today and some potential gray clouds over the 2014 season. We talked about instant replay being integrated into this season. We've talked about steroids being a never really going away issue, if you will, for baseball. Now let's move on to a new issue here. Home plate collisions. We don't see them too often, but they are a big important part of the game. And we will be without them this season, guys. So we'll start off with Dan Conklin here. Dan, you know, again, from that baseball fan perspective, you know, collisions at home plate, it makes things very exciting. What is your reaction to hearing the news of getting rid of the home plate collision?
Well, obviously, it was very negative. I was very disappointed. And it's not just because it's exciting. It's not just because it's an exciting play. I mean, if you're looking at this from the point of view of the players, you've essentially catchers in the MLB are essentially the quarterbacks now. It's like the quarterbacks of the NFL. They're overly protected, and I understand why they're protecting them. I mean, there's a lot of money that goes into these players and, you know, the development of these players and the longevity of these players. But at the same time, where do you draw the line? If you keep banning things like home plate collisions and other such instances which might arise to injuries, where do you draw the line? I mean, when's this going to end?
Now, Connor, another thing that we talked about in our, I guess, very productive lunchtime today. You know, you have a runner coming home. You have a catcher who can block the plate. You eliminate the collision. So what happens? Does the catcher not able to block the plate? Because I've played baseball. You've played many of us have played baseball in this room. And when you go into home plate, and the catcher has the right to block that plate. That's his plate to block. So you do everything you can to get around it. I know in Little League they've kind of taken the whole collisions out of the factor. So what is the runner to do now if he can't even plow over the catcher? If he's blocking home plate, you just kind of slide and wave your little white flag and say, I guess I'm out, guys. What are we supposed to do, Connor?
Well, if you're not in scenario A, you're in scenario B. If you're not in scenario B, you're in scenario C, which is what baseball has done here. It's a very, very, very tricky list of what bans or what allows a collision. Players can still try and railroad the catcher. They can still run full blast through him. They're just going to get called out automatically. Catchers can only be in the baseline if they have possession of the baseball.
Is this football now? Possession of the baseball?
That's the thing. That's $1 million question. Is a possession, is a ball in your hand? Is a ball in your glove? Do you have full control of the ball, or do you have it just holding on just barely? It's a major question to be asked. And I think, you know, we add instant replay to help out the umpires. Now this comes to the umpire's discretion of, hey, do I want to call this guy out? Do I want to call him safe? Is he?
It's almost a little ironic.
Right. It's one of those books you go back to in elementary school where, you know what do you want to do with it? Do you want to go see what the ending's going to be, or do you want to go back and let the player run over the catcher? It's a very confusing process, and I think players are actually concerned about it. Catchers have actually come out and said they actually prefer to have home plate collisions stay in the game. I'm not sure why they would want to have. I mean, they're going to, be upended by, a 6'2", 220 third baseman coming down the line. It's kind of a scary thought, but I think when you have players come out saying they'd rather have the home plate collisions still in the game, which we all know is very far and few between. You may only have 3 or 4 all season. You may have 3 in a week. You never know, but you don't see them too often. And when you do, they're kind of ugly. Think back to the Buster Posey hit from Cousins there, Scott Cousins, that ran into him in San Francisco a few seasons ago. That was a scary hit to a franchise player in Buster Posey. But like Dan said, you can't keep protecting all these players here. And I think catchers, when they come out and say they don't want this protection, they want to have a normal baseball game, because now they need to have the question in the back of their mind, hey, am I blocking the plate? Am I getting in the base path here? I don't know what I'm doing. And then if he doesn't know what he's doing, the base runner's not going to know what he's going to do. And the umpire needs to make the decision, which is a big question.
Now, Tim, before we go to break here, let's get some of your reaction on this. I mean, where do you draw the line, and what is this possession? What is this possession stuff we're talking about?
I said it earlier. I think the MLB is looking across sports, and they see right now the most popular sport in the United States in American football and the mess they have with concussions. And, granted, it's not nearly the same magnitude in Major League Baseball. Like you said, Connor, not many collisions usually in a season, but I think they're trying to avoid that before it even becomes an issue. They already have problems with steroids. So I think they're kind of looking at, kind of like the unprotected wide receiver rule in the NFL and trying to model something after that. The problem is they took all the bad parts and making it really ambiguous as to how to enforce this rule. And just like the NFL, it's going to be a judgment call left up to the ump, and someone's going to go away unhappy with it.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. We're going to take our final break here on Talkin Sports. When we come back, we'll wrap this whole thing together. Thank you very much for watching Talkin Sports. We'll be right back.
Everyone has friends. There's online friends. Friends to go out with on a Saturday night. Friends to hang out with and do nothing. Friends who show up on moving day. And then there are the friends who'll be there if someone is dealing with a mental illness. Are you one of those friends?
Teaching a kid football is one thing. Keeping a kid in school, that's the name of my game. My name is LaDainian Thomason. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Welcome back to Talkin Sports on WTOP 10. Dan Conklin, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Absolutely, Mike.
And Connor and Tim, you could watch the Saturday Hangover from 10 to noon on WNYL Sports. Thanks for being here, guys.
Nice, Mike. Thank you.
Well, we're almost out of time here this week. Remember, as always, to follow us on Twitter at Talkin Sports MVT. You could like us on Facebook, facebook.com/TalkinSportsOswego, and listen to us every Sunday on WNYO from 4 to 6 p.m. For Connor Corcoran, Tim Mohop, and Dan Conklin, I'm Mike Tanzini. We'll be back next Wednesday at 11 p.m. for Talkin Sports Live on WTOP 10. Good night, Oswego.
Everyone has friends. There's online friends. Friends to go out with on a Saturday night. Friends to hang out with and do nothing. Friends who show up on moving day. And then there are the friends who'll be there if someone is dealing with a mental illness. Are you one of those friends?
Teaching a kid football is one thing. Keeping a kid in school, that's the name of my game. My name is LaDainian Thomason. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.